Good evening. I want to first of all welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you here, and see, as always, City Grove looks forward to the Environmental Justice Network coming here. We speak of you often in our reports when we report to our church affiliates, and we support you, and we hope to do more with you. And we thank you for choosing City Grove, and we'd like to thank everyone for being here. Then we want to stop now and take time and pray and thank the Lord for this opportunity, and let His Spirit move in and take us through this afternoon. Let us pray. Most gracious Father in heaven, we come now, Lord, first of all giving you thanks. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity. Lord, we thank you for this day, a day of sunshine after all the storms that we've heard about across our lands. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to meet here. Lord, we ask you to let your Spirit move in and lead us and guide us in all that we do participating in this program. Lord, we ask you to touch each heart and each mind, that what will be done and said will be pleasing in your sight. Lord, we ask you to bless each participant, that what they do here will be the work that you would have them to do. Let them relay the message that you would have them to relay, and that what they do will make a difference in this world and make this project what you would have it to be. Lord, we ask you to bless those that had a desire to be here and couldn't be here for some reason not. Bless those that have worked to make this what it has become at this point. And Lord, when we leave here tonight, that we will have done what you would have us to do, and you will simply say, well done, my good and faithful servants. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, Joanne. All right, so Richard, can you start off with introducing yourself?
Thank you so much. I'm Richard Lee, with the Concerned Citizens of Badin, North Carolina. Sorry. You want me to say some more?
Just what's your connection to Alcoa?
Oh, okay. Like I said earlier, I'm Richard Lee, with the Concerned Citizens of Badin, North Carolina. I'm an ex-Alcoa employee. I worked with Alcoa for 30 some odd years. I'm retired, and my goal is to get Alcoa's attention about the hazardous waste that was dumped in our community.
Thanks, Richard.
My name is Forrest Davis. I was a 36-year employee at Alcoa. It was just, well, the story has to be told. And the things that happened over the years, we saw some. We didn't see it all, but we saw it. And we want Alcoa to stand ground and become the citizen that it said it was going to be in the first place.
My name is Valerie Tyson, and I'm a 27-year retiree of Alcoa Badin Works. And I'm here to declare and decree that Alcoa did some things that were not right in our community. And I would like for them to live to see Alcoa clean up what they messed up.
My name is Macy Hinson. Lived here all my life. I worked at Alcoa 32 years, 10 months. And I just want to tell some of the things that happened just because of the color of your skin the way we were treated and the jobs that we were given, that the most unfavorable jobs. We helped build this plant, yet we didn't get the recognition because of the color of our skin, and nobody has done anything to alleviate or clean up all the hazardous materials that was left all over the West Badin community that caused all of the illnesses that certain people had in the community. And somebody needs to Alcoa needs to step up and help the West Badin community to alleviate all of these bad things, or things that, for lack of a better term, when I say bad things, that they left when they shut the plant down. They shut it down. Most of it was in the West Badin community, and it's still there with all the hazardous materials, and somebody needs to come back and clean it up.
Okay. Well, thank y'all so much. So, for folks new to the story, what's the connection between Alcoa and West Badin? Who is Alcoa, and what have they been doing?
You answer that question, Macy.
Oh, I can, thank you. The plant was built in the West Badin community. There's an East Badin and a West Badin. We're in the West Badin community, and we were considered people that lived in the neighborhood, the black neighborhood. That's where most of the plant was built, and East Badin reaped and got the rewards for what that was done, and they left us here to do all of the dirty work to build the plant up, and only recognition we got was move over and let us tell you what happened. When I say that, I mean the people of East Badin or the town of Badin, let us tell you what happened, and we'll tell you exactly how it happened. And I'll tell you how it didn't happen in the West Badin community.
Mm-hmm. When was Badin founded? And East and West, you talk about that piece, but and that connection with Alcoa. Valerie? Oh, you started to say something.
No.
Oh, okay.
But I can say that during my tenure with Alcoa, I lived on Lee Street, right behind the plant. And as you know, as we was introducing ourselves, you noticed that we had different number of years. So from the time that he started, to Forrest started, to Richard started, and to I started, it was continuously going on. It was continuously going on for the simple reason nobody stepped up to come up and ask Alcoa, or to come against Alcoa for what they were doing. And when I say against Alcoa, it was mothers and fathers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins. But when we started this, Concerned Citizens, we did not even have a husband or a wife. We went from street to street, from door to door, and we could not find a husband or a wife that lived in the same house, simply because if the husband worked at Alcoa, he was dead. If the wife never worked at Alcoa, they were dying. Never worked at Alcoa. And this has to be said. They were the women of the men that were dying and didn't know what they were dying of, because they was bringing contaminated clothes home, and they had children. There was even children that was dying. It was at that particular time. Simply because Alcoa never said as to what we were working in. And they were dying young men, 45, 56. And it was from year to year to year. Well, people would ask you, well, why did you decided to go into Alcoa. Alcoa paid us money. It was the money maker. So we went for the money, but it was inexcusable for us to work in poison and contaminated materials. We had a right to know. And so for every year that they would get away with it, they got bolder, more bolder, and they kept doing it. And right now today, that's why we are still fighting. And when I said fighting, we just want, when our children leave to go to college, we would like for them to come home and find a good living. And then where we live, improve it. Confess to the fact that, we did it. And we're willing as a plant, we're willing as a plant to compromise, just to compromise. You can do it, it's easily done. Yeah, we did that. We did that to you, West Badin. We did that to you. So let's come together with a compromise to say, but we're willing as a people and a company to come together and do what's need to be done.
Since it's interesting you said that, I was talking to a guy that had talked to an ex-engineer that worked at Badin.
A little bit louder for us.
I said that I was talking to a fella that had talked to an ex-engineer that worked at Badin, and he made the statement that Alcoa will never sell that land because they can't, because it's too contaminated. So if you have an engineer making a statement like that, what should you believe? I mean, he was an engineer, and I knew him well. But to make a statement like that, and to know all the dumping, even the oils that they sprayed over the old dirt roads to keep down the dust, and the old trash pile that they put in anything out there. Didn't make no difference what it was. They just put it out there. And then they just covered it up. And they sit there and made this methane gas, and it burnt for 8 months. So they came out there and put some pipes in the ground, planted some good grass over it, and there it is, right in the West Badin community.
So, thanks so much for sharing those things. Specifically, for folks that aren't familiar with Alcoa, it's an aluminum smelting facility.
Exactly.
And so what kinds of, y'all have touched on some like hazardous working conditions or hinted at hazardous conditions or toxic chemicals, but what does that take in that process of aluminum smelting that y'all were seeing or a part of as workers?
First of all, my job at Alcoa was a pot liner. My job consisted of when the pots tapped out, digging them out, repairing them. And in the process of digging those pots out, repairing them, we came in contact with a lot of different chemicals. Some of them we knew about, some of them we didn't. I meant some of them we knew, and some of them we didn't know. But the situation was we didn't know the hazard part of the situation. We thought that what the tools that Alcoa gave us to do the job was the tools to do the job. And we felt like that they had a safety program and that whatever they introduced us to, according to their safety rules and regulations, it was acceptable as far as the guidelines the government had set for us to work in. And in the process of redoing those pots, digging those pots out, we found out that we were working in stuff like black coal tar pits, automatically called kidney cancer, asbestos, automatically called cancer, and we were moving this stuff with our hands. We didn't have. They gave us what they call 3M respirators, and those 3M respirators were so thin that when we cough or spit, inside of that mask would be black from the dust and the product that we were using in those pots. And we were grinding what they call copper stud. We were grinding up that copper, and when we grind that copper, those 3M masks I'm telling you about, we couldn't eat food because everything that we ate had a sweet taste to it. But the copper had got into through the mask and settled in our mouth like a piece of candy or something. It was real sweet. And when we went in the mixer to do the black coal tar pit, if it got on our skin, it burned us just like somebody stuck a match to us because it had acid in it. We didn't know all this stuff. The only thing we knew is that our job was to do this and our job was to do this. And I'm saying that Alcoa did all this to us knowingly. Alcoa knew that this stuff was cancer-causing material. They knew it. You know, after some research and a couple lawsuits, we found out that Alcoa had bought some of the chemicals that the companies that were providing it for them had refused to sell them. They bought them out so they can continue making their product. We didn't know nothing about all this stuff. We were out there working, thinking that we were getting an honest day's wages, wages. Thought that we were getting Alcoa our best to help make their job in our community a better place to live. When we were really and truly destroying our community. We cleaned the pot shells. We would take jackhammers and drill that cement pot lining out, and we get up there with a fire hydrant and a hose and wash it out and wash it down in the drain. And we washed it in the drain, it went right in the lake. We didn't know where it was going. All we know, we washed it in the lake. And then Alcoa telling us now that we are exaggerating. We dreaming it. How can you tell me that I'm dreaming or exaggerating something that I did? I know I did. You know what I mean? I haul hazardous waste into the black community. I hauled it up from cement pot lining, what we call cement pot lining. Sometimes it would be so strong when it rained you couldn't even breathe because it smelled like a alcohol type of something. It would take your breath, even with a respirator on. And I mean, this was in the whole community. We come outside in the morning and get in our cars after we work. At night, we had spots on our cars just like acid rain. You couldn't even wash it off. You couldn't wash it off. Alcoa knowed all this stuff. We were complaining about the things, or the way things were looking and things were set up. And every time we complained, the old black people that were there, they were scared. You know, that was a way of life for them, and a lot of them didn't have educational background, and they didn't want to lose their job. And they reminded us of that every day. You know, boy, you're going to mess around, this plant going to be closed down, run off at the mouth. Because we were speaking out against the things that we were being exposed to or had been exposed to. And Alcoa itself labeled us a troublemaker. And when we start complaining about certain things, the supervisor, oh man, you had to deal with him. I won't never forget. I worked at the dam, and I had a supervisor. His name was John Boyd. I won't never forget him as long as I live. I couldn't ride inside the truck. My job was to ride on the back of the truck. And when I rode on the back of the truck, we read what they call the meters up in the country. And I would read those meters, and I had a white guy, his name was Paul Bowers, he's sitting inside the truck. I get out there and read them meters in the snow, whatever, and he writing down the number. They wouldn't even let me drive the truck to the store. That was against the rules. And then every time that I would complain about it, John, he would go to Over Watson, who was my supervisor at that time. And do you know, because of me complaining, I was labeled a troublemaker and got time off. But when I complained about it, it didn't ever go no further than our so-called union. You know, they give us a couple dollars and everything was fine. You know what I'm saying? But I'm telling you right now, the things that Alcoa did to the community, this ain't about me. This is bigger than me. It's about the people that live in that community. The things that's in that ground that they have been exposed to. The things that they don't know nothing about. The type of chemicals that we put in the ground that we know cause cancer. And to see them suffering and dying, even in their gardens, when they had gardens, they had this stuff would be on their fruits and their vegetables, and they didn't know that. They were eating that stuff. You know what I'm saying? They were eating it. They didn't know no better. And Alcoa knew this. Alcoa knew all these things was happening. They didn't ever tell us, but they knew that was happening. And every time we complain about something, they first thing they had the EPA people, they have them to come to us and say, well, the state said that this is the guideline, this is the decimal that this thing ought to be, and Alcoa is right on the one. You know, and for years we heard that. Even with the asbestos, when I started inquiring, about the asbestos product, it ain't nothing to hurt you, it's safe. And I mean, we use it for everything, aprons, gloves, you name it, we used it. And I'm talking about with our bare hand. We didn't know that stuff was contagious or cancer causing. We didn't know that. But Alcoa knew all these things. And they allowed us to work at it knowingly and willfully that it was killing us. And still to the day, they haven't taken credit for anything that they did to us in the community as employees. You know, I got asbestos scars in my lung, and when I went to be diagnosed, we had a lawyer, and what Alcoa did said, okay, well, we'll pay you for the scars in your lung. And how they came up with a total, I don't know, but they want us to sign waivers saying that they was paying us, but they didn't take responsibility for what was going on. And that's pathetic. And they're still saying the same thing today, that we are exaggerating because we're trying to tell our story about the way they treated us and what they've done to our community. And the only thing we ask them, we just ask them one question: clean up our community.
Thank you.
And we understood that they didn't believe us. That's why at that we started getting it outside of the plant. We risked our jobs getting everything, all this contamination outside the plant. And those that was considered troublemakers, and I was, and I thought that they would search us first, but we got it out. And those things that was very hazardous, like the smokestack, they would release it on 3-11. Dirt roads, where they have that contaminated oil and gas, they on 3-11, that's what we called it. They would do it at night in our communities. And we began to get that soil and all that stuff out. We began to get it out because we knew something was happening. Too many of us. And when I say us, I'm talking about our fellow employees. They were dying. They were getting sick. They were dying. They were sick, and it was all over our community. They talk about that trash pile, but we know where the dump sites are. We know where they are. We know where they are. And then to be called liars. And we making up lies on our court. It's not a lie. It's proof. And men and women are dying. They died of cancer. Too many. Too many.
So, one of the things that Alcoa has been saying, even recently at a meeting, was saying that there has only been hazardous waste storage on the site of Alcoa, so within the boundary of the business. Is that true?
You know why they say that? Because most of the houses were what they call mill houses. Alcoa bought into the houses and stuff that the people had when they first started coming here. Say, Alcoa controlled everything. See what I'm saying? And then when they start selling the houses to the employees, you know what I'm saying? So everything Alcoa saying, from what I understand, the way I see that Alcoa still was saying that was their property. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of whether it was their property or not, they exposed us to a situation that was hazardous to our health, and not only our health, to our environment, and don't want to accept the fact that they did what they did to us. And then when we start talking about it or we start complaining, we were labeled troublemakers, and we still are labeled troublemakers to this day, because some of the ones that thought that they made a decent dollar thought that Alcoa was good to them. You know what I mean? And I thought Alcoa was a fair place to work myself. You know what I mean? I had the opportunity to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if I had not been working at Alcoa. But if I had known that I was selling my soul to the devil, I ain't nowhere in the world I would have been in there. I'm just telling you like it is. Ain't nowhere in the world. And the thing that, like Val said earlier, we took our clothes home. We washed them with our kids' clothes. We didn't know that stuff was happening. And when Alcoa found out this stuff was happening, you know what they did? They brought in a company that would bring us clothes. And we weren't allowed to take those clothes outside of that plant. Hear what I'm telling you? When we took those clothes off, they had a hopper outside that we put those clothes in. So those people came and picked them up and washed them. And when they washed them and brought them back, they had our names in them. They would hang them up on a rack. And we would go out there and get our own clothes, would we not? Alcoa knew, and they still know to the day. And the sad part about this is, you know, what really and truly bothers me today is that it ain't only us dying now. One time it was 85 to 90% all the blacks dying in our community. But now it's affecting whole East Baton too. And I just talked to Tommy Gibson, the guy that I been telling you about, that has been inviting us over to some of the little programs that they're talking about, some of the things that they're trying to do in the community. And he told me the last time I talked to him that he was taking his last cancer treatment. But he's still, Alcoa's still good to him. You know what I'm saying? It's so great. You know what I mean? I'm saying, what does it take to make you understand that Alcoa destroyed you along with me? They destroyed all of us. You know, the way of life we thought we had, it was good then because the stuff hadn't had time enough to take effect on us. But the older we get, some of us ain't even getting old. I was just talking to Forrest earlier. One of our buddies just took out both of his kidneys. He got cancer. We just lost William Wall about a few months back. He died with brain cancer. We just Scott Green over in Mount Gilead wrestling with brain cancer. Claude Green over in Mount Gilead. They done took off half of his foot. Done been diagnosed with cancer. And I can go on and on. And then Alcoa saying that we sitting here fabricating, making up this stuff. What do we, I mean, we don't have to make it up. It is real. It is real. And to be able to sit here and tell my side of the story, I consider it as an honor, not for me, but for the ones that's coming after me, that they might would have a safer environment to live in without having to worry about the contamination and whatnot that we are struggling and fighting to get out of our community.
So, go ahead.
You know, 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago, Alcoa pulled the lake level down. And everybody was wondering what they were doing. But they went in there and they piled gravel up. And piled it up, and sand, and piled it up, covered it up, and then let the water levels come back up. And everybody wondering what they were doing. Well, they would call themselves, I guess, putting a buffer under the water to catch the contaminants, because they know it's still coming into the lake. So I said, well, here we go again.
So that happened like 3 or 4 years ago. How long
It
has
was it 3 or 4 years, maybe 5?
It's about 4 years.
Sorry.
A little bit back 4.
How long has Alcoa been shut down?
Since 07?
Since 07.
Mm-hmm.
So since they're gone, do you still have concerns about the quality of the environment, like the soil, the water, even though the plant has been shut down?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I really do. And I don't mean to do all the talking, but I really do. Because I had the opportunity before we shut down, they had 4 seasons to come into that plant. And when 4 seasons came into that plant, everything that we had been doing with our hands and picking up this and picking up that, they put up red tape around that whole plant. We were not allowed in certain areas while they were in there, caught themselves digging up contaminated soil, where we had done that fluids and oil and all this stuff around on the ground. I'm telling you that. And it ain't nowhere in the world that Alcoa could got all that stuff out of the ground. We know it's still in there. We ain't got to ask no questions about it. We know it's still in there. And like Forrest just said earlier, what they're doing, they're building a foundation that when you test the water level, when you test the water, test the contamination, you're on the top of the contamination you're on top of what they put down as a base to throw it out. We asked the question ain't been longer, how far are you going down to get your sample? How deep are you going? You know what I mean? Where are you going to get them at? And that stuff is still in that ground. Alcoa plant is still sitting out there, and ain't nowhere in the world, nowhere in this universe, just like he said earlier, that Alcoa could have got rid of the contamination that we put out there over 30 years in the ground and from 2007 to now. It's impossible.
The place called the trash pile.
It's impossible.
The place called, I'm gonna let you talk. The place called the trash pile. When you went to the trash pile, well, Macy and myself lived on these streets, you went directly to the trash pile. But when Alcoa had those trucks working 7 days a week, packing dirt and gravel to reach OSHA standards, it became a hill. People that worked at that plant or lived in West Bay knew better because you went in, straight in on the road. But when the trucks finished packing and packing and packing, it became a mountain. So when they take those samples, they're not even hitting that contamination. And they're good because, see, the fence was contaminated. I worked in 261, 262, the carbon plant. They moved the buildings, but they couldn't move the soil. And it was showing up contamination. That was raw material out there. They moved the buildings, and I want you to get this, they moved the buildings, but they couldn't get that contaminated land. They couldn't do anything about it. That green fence is around the flame that these guys talking about. Rain couldn't put it out. Snow couldn't put it out. That gave us the understanding that it was something on the ground that was keeping that fire going. And then I started thinking about, well, we're going to blow up. One of these days, we're going to blow up. Because it was something that was causing that flame, the burn. And every once in a while, you could see white pipes coming up. But then here come the green fence. Here come the green fence. And then they test and they test and they test. I don't know what they think we are. In the morning, if you take a test, it's going to read different. At high noon, if you take a test, it's going to read different. And late at night, around this time, if you take a test, what it's going to read? Different. So if I can conduct my own testing, if we have figured that out, then you all know when to take the test. And you're down there testing all the time.
All the time.
All the time you're testing. But somebody has to take responsibility. Somebody.
So over the time that y'all worked with Alcoa and since, have you seen them take any practices to remediate or clean up? So I've heard basically there's been like what I'll call literal cover-ups. You've been describing just covering toxic waste with dirt or gravel or anything else. Has there been any action to clean?
Well, when we trash dump, for lack of a better term, all of that is in the West Baden neighborhood. There were dirt roads, and we used to save the oil to keep the dust down, put it on the roads. The oil was PCB-laden oil. You don't get rid of PCB-laden oil. You can cover it up, it's still there. Okay, and when all of the dust got up, they take the oils and put it on the roads going into the West Baden community where the trash dump was, and putting it all over the roads to keep the dust from flying all over the place. And when Alcoa came in and shut the plant down, they put dirt, piles of dirt on top of the old trash dump. They just covered the PCB laden oil and made it higher and higher and higher. But it's still there. The only way to clean that area up is to dig it up, haul it off, and put it where it should have been put to start with. So, for lack of a better term, that word Superfund, somehow that area needs to be cleaned up to get rid of the old oil-laden dirt, which is the old trash dump and everything in and around the West Badin community. It's not going to go away. It's going to have to be dug up and hauled away. That's the only way you're going to clean up that area. All of the plant site was in the West Badin community, and that's where we live, in the West Badin community. It's still there. Everything, if you're going around Badin Lake, everything to the right of Badin Lake on Highway 740, that's the West Badin community. It's all still there, and it hasn't been dug up. The only way you're going to clean it up is through a Superfund site. I mean, not necessarily a Superfund site, or some type of site,
Yeah.
to dig it up and haul it off, including the trash dump.
So the Superfund designation is from the Environmental Protection Agency, so that's from the federal government stepping in and claiming it to be a hazardous site. What has your interaction been with government agencies for cleanup or for tracking the hazards?
At one time, there were 3 sites called the hazardous sites in Tennessee, New York, and Badin. And they were on the Superfund sites to clean them up. Either the EPA or the Department of Energy and Department of Energy and Human Natural Resources said, take West Badin off, we'll take care of that ourselves, and it never happened. Therefore, the old trash dump is still there and wasn't cleaned up properly. Again, the only way to clean it up is to dig it up.
So those other sites that you mentioned in New York, those were also owned by Alcoa,
Right.
right? So they
They all had similar trash dumps.
Okay, so this is an old company. They've been a large company and have been doing these practices other places in the country. The EPA knew of 3 sites. West Badin was one of them, but they took on and called the other ones Superfund sites. But our kind of local state government took over the cleanup practices for West Badin. Is that
But
right?
Messina, New York, and Point Comfort, Texas, they were cleaned up according to the Superfund site guidelines. I may be off a little bit, but I'm close to what I'm saying. And West Badin was not on that was taken off that group.
You got to understand, Messina is near Lake Michigan. And they weren't going to let that contaminants go in that Great Lake. So the Superfund Pact took care of that. Texas was another horseshoe. That horseshoe had to be fixed. So the Superfund Pact took care of that. But Badin is still there.
Somebody said take West Badin off. I don't know who said it. EPA may have been involved and say, no, we'll take care of that area ourselves. Somebody said West Badin should not be on the Superfund site.
But it wasn't because of better conditions in terms
No.
of the hazards.
No.
No. Mm-mm. And then from what I understood, it was because of our representatives. The representatives that we had that were in office at that particular time, that they went along with Alcoa on whatever decision had been made to clean up the West Bank community. I was also told that West Bank was chosen to store hazardous waste because we didn't have the resources to fight them, the financial resources, the educational resources, but all those things that we needed in order to stand for ourselves, we didn't have them.
And the Superfund site, that term, they would take care of those, not those Alcoa or whoever. It comes from the Superfund site.
That's right.
To clean up,
That's right.
not out of their pockets. They
That's
may
right.
they may put it in a location
Right.
to be used, but it was never used.
Allocated.
They, I worked where we collected the oils to put on the roads to keep the dust down. Majority of the areas in the West Baden community are all dirt roads. East Baden, they're paved. When the dust got high, they bought the PCB laden oils and put it on the roads to keep the dust down. They went to the Narrows Dam and the Falls Dam, same concept. But as far as the alleyways in East Baden, they were already paved, so they were not, the oils was not put on their roads.
Now I'm wanting to ask some of the questions that are coming in from the Q&A online. And can you tell me more about the types of jobs that folks were doing? And so what were the different jobs that y'all had with Alcoa? And you've also talked about kind of the risk levels associated. There were different risk levels with hazards with different jobs. Can you tell us more about that?
That's what I was saying earlier about pot lining. Pot lining was mostly black. You know, we had 1 or 2 white guys in there, maybe 3, but about everybody in pot lining was black. And our job, like I told you, we deal with black coal tar pit, which was council causing material. We deal with asbestos, which was council causing material. About most of the black people were in pot lining, either in pot lining or in the bull game, 1 or 2. But the pot lining part was the most nastiest and dangerous part of the whole plant, because we were exposed to anything that was hazardous waste. We were exposed to it, from the material that we used to build the pot to the stuff that we used to tear down the pot. Everything that we touched and spent pot lining, it was hazardous material. Even down to the fluoride and stuff that we used. Everything that we touched in pot lining, we used to have these little white suits, little paper suits, when we would be in a pot shed digging out the what we call the ore dust, and those same little 3M masses I'm telling you about. And we come out there, sometimes you couldn't see nothing but our eyes, where we were covered up with dust and all that kind of stuff. And like I worked in the green end, I was a crane operator down there, and what they would do, it was a bunch of black carbon dust down there. And then sometimes the white guys down there, they would open up the chute, and that stuff would come up in your face, and the crane, when you come down, you couldn't see nothing but your eyes. I mean, all this stuff was hazardous waste. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know nothing about what it did to the body. Only thing we know that we worked in, nobody had never told us nothing about the product. We never had any information on the products that we were using. Everything we used, Alcoa kept contract of what we were using, and everything that they used, they kept it to themselves. Even when I got hurt, Alcoa carried me up to the main office and called itself giving me what they call light duty work. And my job up there doing light duty work was doing MSDA sheets and trying to find out what kind of chemicals was in the plant and all that. And when I would report certain things to them, the first thing they would say, they don't know how it got in there. But it didn't ever go no further than them. No, it didn't ever go no, like we had stuff in there with skeleton heads on it, all that kind of stuff. But they said they don't know how it got in there. Somebody brought it in there. And then they want us to sign waivers that what we saw at the main office, where we were separating medical files and stuff, that we wouldn't talk about it. We couldn't tell nobody what we saw and all that kind of stuff. And I had opportunity to look at stuff where they knew that people had been exposed to radiation and all this kind of stuff. They even had in some of that comment that they were scared to elaborate on some of the damage that it might have did to some of those individuals. See, everything that we did at Alcoa was hazardous. Like he said earlier, I worked out at the River Game. I used to help them change oil in the transformer. PCP. It run on the ground, we leave it on the ground.
Yeah.
It was just that simple. You know what I'm saying? Take some rock, they had gravel out there, we wreck it over and go on about our business. You know what I'm saying? All those things that we did, the whole plant was just a hazardous situation.
Yeah.
And like I said, we didn't have nobody. They were doing their own testing and turning it into the state of North Carolina, or whoever they were turning it into, and it was acceptable. And they did this for years. And then they said when we started inquiring, they were talking about they had representatives in local government or in North Carolina legislation that they could confine to and get away with this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it had to be true because Alcoa was never really fined for nothing. If you go back and look at all the things that Alcoa been fined for, it wouldn't amount to. It probably wouldn't amount to $300,000. What they were charging $2,000 for this or $1,000. I mean, everything that they ever did to us or everything that we ever done to Alcoa was a lie. And it's just that simple. And like I said, all the dirty jobs was out.
And one of the sidebars before you get too far, I used to look at the jobs that the people had, and I said, there are certain jobs I don't want to work in because those people get dirty in there. And that was the plant site. So I started looking around. Everywhere there was a job where you didn't have to change clothes and you could go from job site to job site and wouldn't get dirty, I started bidding them so that I would not go where they were working because I didn't want to do it.
Did any employees receive compensation from Alcoa? That's another question coming from the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got, like I said earlier, when I was diagnosed with asbestos scars in my lung, they gave me X number of dollars, and like I said, I had to sign a waiver saying that even though they gave me X number of dollars for the asbestos scars in my lung, they weren't reliable. I mean, they weren't responsible, or they weren't reliable for it. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they gave it to the lawyer, and the lawyer gave it to us, and we had to sign a waiver saying that Alcoa ain't responsible for that. I mean, they're not reliable for that. So it was just like everything that they did, they could buy their way out. Yeah. And when they bought the way out, everything was silent. Because the lawyer even had nerve to tell me one time that if we had a gag order, that we couldn't talk about how much the few little dollars that Alcoa gave us and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then when we start checking into things, we found out that some of the white people that had some of the same problem, they got way more money than what we got. And you know what the story was? That our asbestos contamination wasn't as great as theirs. How can you determine that? How did you determine that? You know what I'm saying? And we got people dying with cancer and all this kind of stuff. Everything that Alcoa did to us it was unfair. You know, and then they wanted us they wanted us to think that they were so great to us, and they wanted the community to think they were so great to the community. When they knew, and the people that you talking to today at Alcoa, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. All they know is what they read or what somebody told them. If you wasn't inside of that plant, if you didn't experience what we experienced in there, then you won't never know what it's all about. That's why we're trying to tell our story. And Alcoa know if those old men that can't talk for themselves was here right now, some of the things they would tell you would be shocking. I'm telling you. Alcoa they did us wrong. It's just that simple. And we just asked one question: clean up our community.
I received monies simply because the way I was treated as a female. I was allowed to take a test we call it the shop,
right,
but for a higher paying job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me and another white female. She didn't finish high school. She didn't finish the test. She got the job, and I didn't get it. And I did find my booklet. So I found my book, and it had It had the results of the test. And the majority of those blacks that took those tests made higher than our white counterparts. Now getting back to the white female, we was in the same department. She went to the shop, she didn't like it, and she thought she was coming back to fall in her regular slot, but she overstayed. And we had to file a grievance. I had to fight it, because she was determined to come back. She didn't score higher than I did. She shouldn't have been up there, period. And I underlined all the whites that didn't pass, but those names that I underlined were the ones that got the jobs in the shop. And blacks was making higher on those tests than we were. And we were. That's how we were treated. I started off in the Bull Gang, hottest place I ever seen. But how was it that when we would go on the pots, and we have on so many clothes, you couldn't tell if we were like a man or a woman. The white females would come in there with false eyelashes, lipstick, and everything. Who do you think got qualified first? The white females. And when it was time for the blacks to get qualified in that Brewer gang, setting carbon, the supervisors would take vacations, and we'd have to wait some more. That's how I got compensated, because I had my little book, and I had my answers, and I had my grievances that I won. Yeah.
Did you sue Alcoa for discrimination?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, because I was discriminated against. Because I was.
Let me tell you this. Let me say this before. The reason being why she could sue him, because she had a copy of the test code.
I had this test.
You know what I'm saying? But the ones of us that didn't have no proof, what nothing we could do. See what I'm saying? And believe it or not, I don't know how Bell got it, but Bell was the only one that had those test codes. I'm telling you. But when it came to us, a lot of, like she said, a lot of us took the test, and it was just, hey, word of mouth, hey, you didn't pass the test. No. They never show us where we flunked nothing and all that. It was just, hey, we didn't pass the test. And then I said and noticed a lot of things when they would put guys on as supervisors in certain places. If they didn't go along with everything that Alcoa wanted to go, they didn't have that job long. They found a way to get them out of there.
Yep. I remember a lot of that because I became the supervisor. See, our course started in, I think it was 1916.
17. 16 or 17.
And they were there till 2007. There was a lot of contamination going on. There was a lot of it. And a lot of discrimination going on. When I went to put in for a job down there, I put in for a job and they said, you need to go back to school. They wanted me to go back to college so I could play football. But I got discriminated against down at the college too, and I didn't want to go back. So I didn't. I couldn't, I'd have hurt somebody if I stayed down there. So, and I'd probably been in trouble, big trouble. So I had to go, and I came home. So I got that job, and I started in part line. And you talk about a dirty job. I was spitting up black stuff out of my lungs 6 months after I left pot line. And when they laid me off and I came back, they sent me to the planing mill. I was up there cutting asbestos, sawing it, moving it around, dust flying everywhere. We didn't have no mask nowhere. I didn't know better. That was in 1971. I didn't know no better. Went potlining, removing asbestos, laying it down for the pot shells to sit on.
Crates.
you get so hot down up under them pots, sometimes it melts the buttons off the shirt. And that was tough. But I left Potline and went to the service school bull game. I quit every day for 2 weeks. Cause they had a thing called ply your hard,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to ply hard.
Had to fly hard.
And that was swinging a 12-pound hammer
Mm-hmm.
over a pot that's molten bathroom metal, 900 something degrees. But we got past that with the crust breakers. Everything had to be made ergonomically easier because we had women coming in playing. So we got the crust breakers. We didn't want to mess with them crust breakers because it was slowing us down. We get through with our work, we didn't have to do anything unless pot tap out or something. But we had to use the crust breaker. So we mastered the crust breaker. That's where we did that pretty fast. Mind you, we was trying to get out of the heat. Because that heat was, you just can't describe it. But I did that for a few years, and then they put me in the technician training. I did pretty good with that, so they decided, well, we're going to groom you for a supervisor. So I went and did supervisor training, and I did what do you call it? Being a pot doctor, learning how to troubleshoot pots, and learning how to start up pots, and I mastered all that. A lot of people said I was the best at it. And I had to go to other plants to do the same thing. But being said that, I made my own way to get off those pots and be a supervisor, so to get out of the heat and to be a better. But the damage is already done. I got asbestos poison in both lungs. Got COPD behind me. There's no way to get it out. You can't get it out. That's what it told me. So I have to get this X-ray every day. This now CT scan every year. I'm just waiting to see if I'm going to get or when I'm going to get it, cancer and die. There's no way around it. So the damage is done. They compensated me a little bit, but nowhere near some things I've been hearing. Nowhere near some of the things that some of these white people got. You get nowhere near that. So Alcoa is what it is. It's exposed itself to be racist and a very hazardous place to be, and a poor neighbor. Because they always said they was trying to be a good neighbor in the neighborhood. They was the worst.
They gave us opportunity.
Go ahead.
They gave us opportunities to become supervisors, but when I became a troublemaker, I signed up for a supervisor test, and I didn't think no more of it.
I'm laughing, Wilford.
Because I just signed the paper. But the next morning, I was running late because I was running my mouth, and I was being late. And they started calling me over the intercom. Well, I thought I was in big trouble, but Richard was the first one I met. He says, they're waiting on you at the test center. I said, what test center? But they wanted to get rid of me then. because I was labeled a troublemaker. And so my supervisor came and got me, and he said, "They're waiting on you at the test center." I said, "What test center?" I had forgotten that I had signed the paper, so I went over there, and the results of the test came back. Couldn't pass to go to the shop, but I passed the supervisor's test. And they said they want you right away. And I'll never forget, Vanessa said, "Valerie, you passed that test." I said, "Really? When you gonna start?" I said, "Never, because I don't want it." I knew they wanted to walk me out that gate, and they were setting me up.
Set us up for the kid.
And I turned it down because they was going. I had the protection, a little protection from my union. But if I'd have said yes, I was going to take that supervisor's job, they'd escorted me out the next morning. And that's to me, that's racism, because they was trying to set me up. They were setting me up. You understand me?
They used Valerie as a scapegoat.
That's right.
They had the railroad track where you loaded the
Yeah.
aluminum to go out the plant. And Valerie was a driver. People she worked with, they cut her gas line, the brake line, so that when she started toward the railroad, it wouldn't stop. And if she hadn't turned real sharp, she was just going over the edge. But that's how they used to do black girls, particularly in those areas. They try to set them up to get in trouble. And there are a lot of things went on until somebody gets some of us individually and talk to us on an individual basis to tell our stories. We don't have time to tell you. Sit in an environment like this, somebody needs to talk some of it to us individually and get the true stories of what happened on our situation, because all of us had some instances. Yeah, I avoided those jobs because I didn't want to get dirty. I didn't want to go in the environment that they were working in. I couldn't see how people would work like that. So somehow somebody needs to talk to us individually to get our stories of what had happened in that plant. We could sit here till
And tell stories.
9 o'clock in the morning, and you'd still be there listening to us. So,
I mean, it was so bad. So we had people in there with Nazi signs. They were tying hanging nooses and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, we walk out the plant one day, and the parking lot is full of Confederate flags and people with Confederate uniforms on and all this kind of stuff. And when we start complaining, we don't see nothing wrong with it. That's those people's heritage. They had it down so fine till they brought Roland West in there. Remember him, Val?
Yeah.
Had him to do what they call supposed to have been like diversity training, trying to convince us that was those people's heritage, and it was all right for them to display the sign that they were displaying on Alcoa's property. They wanted us to accept that. You know what I'm saying? When everything that we did had to be within their guidelines. And the way Alcoa went about it with Roland West and trying to get us to accept that kind of stuff, and I remember asking the question, well, what about our heritage? That was the question that I asked them. You know what I mean? But you know what? I never got an answer when it came to our heritage. And then I asked another question. Well, what about all the black men that were forced to fight in the Confederate Army? What about them and their family's heritage? Where do we fit in this thing? You know what I mean? And then they had never enough. Now this ain't no lie. This is the goddamn truth. They had never enough to find a black man and put him on a Confederate uniform with a flag. Did they not bear?
And singing, I wish I was in the land of Dixie.
And put him right on the front row at the plant, where we had to park in our parking lot, where we had to walk by these folks. And couldn't say nothing to them, couldn't say nothing to do nothing. All we had to do, we had to accept it. You know what I'm saying? Because if we said anything to them, we was troublemaker, and Alcoa would take disciplinary action against us. Now that was pathetic. And then they sit there trying to convince us that they've been so great to us. And then they got certain people that's reading these notes that they giving them and all that kind of stuff. And then they're trying to tell us, hey, this didn't happen to you. How can you tell me what happened to me and I was a part of it? I felt that heartache. I know what it's all about. I felt that headache. I know how I feel to not want to come to work, or when I come to work, not knowing what I'm gonna do today, or what not to expect, or what to expect. You know what I'm saying? If they said, do this just like Val said, they used to try to get me to put in for supervisor job. I know I wouldn't have been there no time, because I was just like her. I was a troublemaker. Anytime you ask questions about anything that wasn't containing to them, and they had the people absolutely brainwashed that if we talked against Alcoa, that we were trying to close the plant down. And those people believe that stuff. And I mean, some of the things that they said to us, or some of the things that the way they labeled us behind stuff, because the only thing we were doing was asking questions, speaking out about things that we didn't understand, or the reason why they were treating us like they were treating us, and claiming to be, like he said, a good cooperation in the community. We didn't see none of that. We didn't see none of that. I'm just telling you like it is.
He was talking about bidding. Every job that went on the board, I was bidding.
Sure was.
And I did get the shipping.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got the shipping, I was down there a while, and we had this thing called a bander, because we had those 50-pound little round aluminum pigs. And we were getting ready to go to 9 o'clock break. And when I came back, I pulled my bander down. I got a place where I had to go get 3 stitches, because the guy mixed my bander up, and when I pulled on the bander, it hit me in the head. Didn't knock me all the way out, but I was just bleeding. And I never forget, J.T. Bird put me on the scooter and took me to Andrew. But so much blood was in my face, and they took me to the doctor. But when I come back, the shift wasn't over, so I had to go back to work. But I had 3 stitches in my head. Did they fire the guy, the white guy? No, they didn't fire. That's what I went through, because I was labeled
And that's what makes it saying what he's saying. Each one of us got a different story.
We got a different story.
Each one of us got things that we experienced in that plant that's similar to each other, but in different ways.
In different ways.
So, y'all organized when you were working there to your own detriment in some cases. And you've also been organizing since then to have Alcoa be accountable and clean up. How can folks that are joining in now, other organizations, other people around the state, how can they help you?
Come and be a part of us, ask questions, ask us as people, come join us. We need help.
That's mine. Come and join us. I'm
They're
sorry.
help in numbers.
We definitely need it.
It's in numbers with Alcoa. Help us. Because you sit here, these stories that we're telling you are not lies. They're not lies. And 9 times out of 10, it's by the supervisors went along with it. Some of the black supervisors, so at the time I got the stitches, my supervisor was black. He was black. And he told me, how do you, Shad? He said, how do you know that he did it? I said, he was waiting on me to pull it down. And when I pulled it down, it just hit me. And blood was everywhere. Yep.
This is a story of David versus Goliath.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
We need every hand and every foot that will get in this fight and go along with it, because Goliath is a big ball over there.
And some of this I want to elaborate on. This don't only concern Badin. This concern Montgomery County, Anson County, Richmond County, because that water flows downstream. That same hazardous waste that we put in Badin Lake went downstream. And the people down in the country have never ever, from what I understand, had the water and stuff tested for certain things as PCB, fluoride, and all that, because they didn't know nothing about it. They didn't know nothing about what we're talking about today. They didn't know. And we were fortunate enough to have a meeting a while back where we had some representatives from Montgomery County to come to one of the meetings that we had, and had opportunity to share with them some of the things that we put in that lake. But my thing is this right here. As long as we've been doing this, Alcoa has never sent anybody to any of our meetings to find out what we're talking about, to show any kind of concern about what we're talking about. The only time that Alcoa has ever sent anybody in our community was when they came over to the church, trying to convince the black people in our community that it wasn't nothing hazard out there, because they're trying to get a plant set up that is going to benefit Alcoa.
I just want to thank each of you for sharing your story. And I know that over the years you've been silenced. And I'm hearing from what you've shared that they've tried a lot of things to silence you. And so I just want to, first of all, thank you for being here, for still fighting. This absolutely is a David and Goliath story. And with that, I want to remind folks of what you heard today. They're using money, they're using research, they're using anything on their side to influence power, to make their story of we're not contaminating, everything stays on our site, everything is safe here. They cannot be trusted, and they cannot continue to get away with this. They've been doing it for 100 years and will continue it 100 more years. We cannot have this be other people's problems. I want to thank y'all so much for seeing and bearing witness and sharing your observations on what you've been doing. And because I think there is power, y'all know that because you were in Alcoa, you know everything that went down. These stories are the most important because we're listening to Alcoa right now, right? And so we need to be able to promote what folks have been saying, and there is no way that this is acceptable in terms of what North Carolina allows and what the United States allows in terms of our protection agencies. We have to be able to tell them that this right here, West Badin, this cannot continue to happen. It should have been cleaned up 30 years ago when those other Superfund sites were cleaned up. It cannot go another day. We need numbers. We have had a steady number. Y'all started this organization with 3 people. 3 people 10 years ago. Start up this fight. We need more numbers. We need to make sure that this does not continue. We need everybody's help. So please share these stories. Share us on social media. Follow this campaign. We do have that rally September 30th. Come here to West Badin and see for yourself. This is a rural community. Not a lot of folks. Let's increase the population on September 30th. Show them there are numbers behind us. I want to just take a breather because I know that, again, this has been life and death, and y'all have seen a lot of that. So thank you for showing up and bearing witness as well. Thank you for participating, asking questions. Keep things going on social media and share with everybody that you know. This can't keep going. Any final words?
I like to say some final words. Whatever we're saying here today, it's not for us. It's not about us. It's about our kids and our grandkids, the people in our community. We're concerned about what Alcoa has released in this community and the danger that it poses to those kids that are coming after us. For me, it's too late. You know, and as far as said earlier, it is what it is. But we want to make sure that when our grandkids and our great-grandkids and the kids after them come along, that they have a safe environment where they can not only live and play, but not have to worry about contamination.
Two words, join us.
One word, help.
Help.
Help us.
Help.
Beautiful.
Help us.
Beautiful.
Join the fight
And then
between David and Goliath.
I like that.
I want to see you in the next meeting.
All right.
I like that.
100%. What are we doing? Wait, we have, hold on. Ah, that's my bad. That's my bad.
We have a lot of questions in the chat.
Okay, we have more questions and we have more time to answer them, so we're all right.
Okay.
All right, listen,
Camera off.
it's still on. That's my bad. All right, we got more questions, y'all. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
My time for questions is over. All right. Which one?
Water park question
All right.
and how to get involved. And then there was one about water.
Yeah, this isn't a. Can you ask this in a full question? Which one though?
We'll probably answer some of
Is
it.
it this one?
We'll ask this question. This is the
Alright.
question.
Thank you. All right. Sorry, folks. So, what are residents' primary concerns related to primary health concerns related to all primary health concerns? So, for example, there are many residents with private wells, and they have concerns about like drinking water and things like that. So, folks that never worked on Alcoa, what are health concerns that come from this?
Council. And when you say council, you know, it ain't one kind of council. You know, because it's kidney council, then we got lung council, and it's a known fact that the water's got some type of contamination in it, because the mercury level out there in the lake, the fish, the recreation part of it, the hazardous waste that's in the water. I'm quite sure that it's in the groundwater, because we are raising cane right now with Alcoa about Little Mountain Creek, and it's right down beside the water reservoir, and it's running in that direction. So if it's running in that direction, it's bound to be in the drinking water. And Alcoa saying that, hey, look, you know, we trying to find a way to contain this. You know, out of all the things that they're saying that they have already got in control, seems like they're having the biggest problem with Little Mountain Creek every time we talk to them. Am I right?
Every time.
Every time we talk to them, nobody that never ever came up with well, we got this under control, but they telling us we're trying. When you was at the last meeting that they talked about, we talked about Little Mountain Creek. You heard what they said about Little Mountain Creek, but they didn't talk about the water reservoir. You know, they didn't say nothing about that, because they knew that the people in the community would have been kind of disturbed with the things that we were saying, and it's running into the drinking water. And they saying, go ahead.
every now and then, Little Mountain Creek would get contaminated.
Oh, yeah, most definitely so,
They test it all the time.
all the time.
They're gonna be out there testing it every month.
Every day.
It's a known fact. So you gotta know that we know that they know.
So Little Mountain Creek, what's the significance of that? Where is that? And-
All the
Run from the trash stack.
all the water from the plant site
Yeah.
collects into Little Mountain Creek. Little Mountain Creek goes down to the lake.
Lake Tillery.
Lake
Lake.
Tillery. Lake Tillery is getting contaminated just like Badin. And it's going on downriver, going all the way down to
Montgomery, Stanley, Anson, all of them, because it's
All the way
water's
south
going in
around.
that direction, all the way down south. Don't nobody know how far it go because nobody has never tested. It's never been, those reasons, reservoirs in there have never ever been tested for the type of chemicals that we're telling you about. Because then nobody knew nothing about them. So it's almost impossible for somebody to test for those type of chemicals in the water. I'm not saying that they weren't testing the water to a certain extent, but they didn't know what they were looking for. That's why Alcoa saying that now they're trying to tell us that they got professionals that come in here doing their testing and all that, when we know that they were hiring their own testers. We know this for true fact. And they acknowledge the fact that they were hiring their own testers. Not only were they only hiring their own testers, they had their own EPA people, and they were turning in their own samples. Everything that we saying is speak for itself. Alcoa admitted some of the things in a roundabout way, but it's all the same thing. You know, we testing our own samples, and the government saying, hey, yeah, they can do this. You know, and you know, if I'm testing my own stuff, I'm gonna put on what I want, especially if it means that it's my livelihood. It's common sense.
They're testing every day.
Every day.
They're testing. They might hide the vehicles, but I
You
sometimes
see them
sit.
walking across the field.
I sit right there till I see them coming out. They go to the bottom of that trash pile near Little Mountain Creek, and I'll sit there because they'll close that green gate
Yeah.
like they're locking that gate.
Mm-hmm.
But I pulled up and seen that the gate was unlocked. I called Richard. I
Yeah.
sure did. And when I'm not there, he's there.
I see him. I
They
come to the all the time. and see
testing
'em.
every day.
And when you inquire, they tell you that they testing.
So
They
if-
doing
if-
all they can do, they say. You got people over there doing this. You got people doing that.
If everything is okay, why are you doing all
Still
this
testing. That's what we
testing?
at. That's what we at.
Do you know how often they have to submit tests to the state?
No. Now that's one thing we don't know. How often they had to admit.
They didn't even say that at that meeting.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They telling you what they want you to know, and the things they don't want you to know, they ain't telling.
So, and as far as I know, as I've learned, is that they have to submit an average, like so one sample each month,
One sound.
and they don't have to. But there's no regulation on which sample, and so if they're testing every day, but they only have to submit one.
You know they're gonna submit the best one.
The goodness.
That's why they're doing it. That's why they testing more than one time.
Yeah.
So, from online, somebody said, I heard there were plans to build a water park on the lake. Do you think this is safe, and have you raised these concerns with officials about having a water park?
I did. They are bringing a water park. And if you go to that boat landing and just look where they put those boats in, you can see the buildup. So when I went to council meeting, I raised the question, if you want to why do you want to bring people in this town and you know that this land is contaminated? Did I get an answer?
No,
No.
they don't want you to disturb.
Don't
their
disturb
money-
that-
their
yeah.
money,
That's right.
money claim. Don't touch it.
And they want that water park.
If here's another thing. If you go to the boat landings They got these signs up at,
Little bit of sand.
on, Badin Lake.
Yeah, they got 'em.
So do not eat these fish over twice a week. Do not.
You put them back up. You know,
So
they
why
took
would
them
you put up a sign like that?
Yeah, they got signs out there. They got signs, they got places for signs 5 by 7, but the sign is only 1 by 3.
Yeah, just like they showed us when they did it, when we was over at the church. You couldn't even read the signs that they showed. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way they
They
operate.
just went up.
That's the way they operate. That's the way they operate. But there's a lot of concern about the recreation part that they come out putting out there. I think that the water still got hazardous material in it. I think that it would be hazardous to individuals' health. That's why I'm saying, in order to put those kind of things out there, you need to first clean up the community, clean up the site, because it's hazardous waste all over this place. And they know it's out there. They know it's out there. And the people that the people that live in these so-called messes, they don't know nothing about Alcoa. There are people that coming in here from somewhere else, and everything that they're sitting there saying or trying to convince the public of are things that has been given to them to read. They don't know nothing about this community. They don't know nothing. They don't know nothing about what we put in the land because they weren't here.
A lot of people that are talking up Lake Badin
Right?
are of Spanish-speaking descent.
That's right.
95% of them come from Spanish-speaking, the majority of them from Charlotte. And all they're talking about is the convenience of how good it is to go to Badin Lake to have fun. But they don't say, have you been told about what's been done to try to clean up Badin Lake? All they see is the recreation part of it.
So how do folks use Badin Lake?
How do we use
Or
it?
how do people in general use Badin Lake? And who goes there?
The people that come for the recreation. They use it for recreation from primarily the Charlotte area, about how convenient it is to come to Badin Lake to swim in the polluted lake.
So do folks
How
from
do
around
we
here?
use it?
Yeah, do folks?
We don't use it.
We know what's in it.
We don't use it.
I don't even fish in it no more. We used to fish in it.
Yeah.
We don't even fish in it no
We
more.
used to swim.
Because we know that the mercury level is high. We have been told several times not to eat so much fish. At one time, we wouldn't eat none because of the mercury level in the fish. And that's we just talking about fish. We don't know what else is in the so-called lake. But it's been told that some of the things down there that you wouldn't believe in. You know, and we saying that the things that's down there with the hazardous waste that they put in there, we can't see under that water. We don't know what's in there. You know, and Alcoa have had divers to go out there, and they have come back up and told stories about how big catfish were and how they had crossbreeds of different species and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, you know. And we already know that it come from the contamination that was in the water. That's the only thing they could have produced. Only thing they could have produced.
If you ever come and go to the boat landing, you could see the buildup.
Yeah.
And the reason I was looking at her because I showed different ones the boat entrance.
What does the buildup look like? Like, how can you tell? Like, what is it?
Cause it's black carbon dust. It's black.
And you
it's-
can,
okay.
I'm sorry, you can look in the water and see the contour of the bricks that they use to build the baking furnace inside the plant. And all of them will look sort of designs. They weren't
Which called copy.
construction, but they know that they came from the baking furnace.
Yes.
And it go all the way around the lake.
That's right. Cause you can ride West Badin, and you remember when they used to give those 5 brick that they got out those keels
Yep.
and put and tell the people that they could use them. And if you ride around West Badin, you'll see garages, some of the homes, They're purple like
Driveways.
dried up, and you can see some buildup still on those bricks.
Yeah.
I showed them the living,
Tell the truth.
and you can see them, and they was giving them away.
You can see my uncle's
That's right.
footing where he got his to underpin the house.
That's right.
There's some things you can talk about, and there's some things you can see.
That's right.
Oh, there's one thing I meant to say. I might be saying it wrong, but no one from Alcoa in supervisory or positions has ever said, let's go to Badin and talk to some of those people and see what they're going to say. No one has ever talked to us as people.
Has never come down our meeting. Look, as long as we've been at this thing almost 13 years, and nobody has never came back, not one meeting. But then when the Protect the Bay Lake people got involved, then they wanted to tell them that the things that we were telling them about what we had been exposed to, that we had experienced on him, is a lie. You know what I'm saying? And then when they started doing their research, they found out that a lot of the things we were saying was the truth. And them being with the type of resources that they had, monetary and educational wise, they were in a better situation to fight than we were. So when I don't know what happened on that end, but that end got to be a silent fight, you know. And ours is still just like it was from the start. You know, we still out in limbo because they trying to label us as being liars, troublemakers, and all that kind of stuff. But those people know from the tests that they had ran on the water, from the people that they paid to come out and run the test, that the things that we telling are the truth. They're the truth. And you know, like at one time, when they were trying to find out what was going on with us, it was every time you turn around, someone was trying to contact us about the things that we had been exposed to. But now it's well beyond. You know, it's just like we right back to phase one, where we started from.
So, in terms of like going back to that question of like what other organizations or what other folks can do to help, like part of this is there's environmental concerns, there's been labor concerns, there's been this one company's been exploiting land, people, everything for a long time, but to be able to work together, it seems like a really important thing because there's lots of people that are impacted by these actions. There's lots of people that are impacted by the contamination.
Yep.
And so it is important that since y'all have been fighting this for a long time, you have the most knowledge to also be centered in that fight. And for folks to be able to work together with y'all.
With us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we like for them to come to some of our meetings so we can sit down and tell them some of those contaminations that we put in the water. That's the only way they're going to understand what it's all about. You got to come and sit down. Let us talk to you. Let us tell you what we put out there, what's contaminated, and then you can go back home and do your own research on the stuff that we're telling you about. We put in it. Don't just take our word for what we're saying. You know, you can go out there and have somebody collect water samples and whatnot, or go in some of these areas. Alcoa ain't gonna let you go in no areas no more because when they found out that we were talking to environmental justice, they locked everything up. They made everything there. If you go across their property, you trespass. That's to keep down the truth. You know what I'm saying? Everything that we're telling you and all those sites that we're telling you about, Alcoa got it now, so you can't go on. One time we could just walk on them when we got ready.
Yeah.
But then when we start exposing the nature of the situation, then they come in, okay, hey, we need to stop this. And they found out that they couldn't stop us by mouth. So they came, I think some of the environmental people they saw out there looking around, and when they found out that they was out there, then they started locking things up.
Yeah, on the plant sites.
Yeah.
On the
At
plant
the
side.
dams, they had capacitors, and those capacitors would blow.
Yeah.
And we had guys working on the river. When the capacitor would blow up, it's a PCB contaminated capacitor. Some of them would just turn their head, throw them in the river.
That's right.
They all over the river.
All over. All over.
But you never heard anybody say anything
Nope.
about it.
Never.
But we threw them in there, didn't we, Richard?
Then plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Well, we went on that property and was getting those samples, you remember?
Yeah.
And we was getting samples to send off. Me and Macy, we went on Alcoa's land, and the very next day we went back. Was it a
They had a big
fence
job
up?
on it, didn't
A
they?
gate.
A gate. It was a gate up on, and that was on Jackson Street, one of the dusty roads where they used to go to the filter
Guess
plant.
who owns the property?
Alcoa.
That's right.
So,
And 80% of the property in the West Baton community is owned by,
Alcoa.
Alcoa.
so they can do what they want to.
That's what they're saying.
They do what they want to.
That's right. That's what they're saying. It's their property, they can do what they want to. But they have never put none of this stuff in the area because they have cleaned up their site and their property, and those chemicals or those things that we say don't exist.
They did a community-wide survey to find the hazardous materials all over the community. In the West Baton community, they found 3. In the East Baton community, they found 42.
That's right.
I know.
True.
But we didn't do anything like that because we dumped it pretty good, didn't we, Richard?
Most definitely.
We hit it.
And that's no lie. On second shift.
Oh, yeah. Look, second and third, that's when we did our dirty work.
Yep.
For Alcoa.
And we're not telling you anything to try to convince you who we are and what we did. We're telling you the truth.
It's the truth.
It's fact.
Look, our concern is not about us. Like I say, I can't say this enough, because it is what it is for us. But it's the ones that's coming after us, or the people that's affected by this stuff and going through medical changes and not even knowing why you're going through them. See, like, somebody want to know why they having this or why they got cancer. The cancer rate is so high in this little area, in this little community. Why they got those signs out there about the fish life and all that kind of stuff. See, like somebody would want to know why they can't enjoy the lake like they ought to or they want to. And Alcoa saying, hey, look, it ain't no hazardous waste out there, and we know it's out there. We know it's out there because we put it out there.
The CEO of Alcoa did a survey with the University of Pittsburgh, trying to find out why there was so much cancerous things in this area, and that it was so bad that he didn't want to know the results. I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know.
Alcoa something else. It's sad to have to sit here and talk like this about the way they treated us and the way that they're still treating us about cleaning up the site. And that's all we're asking. Just make the wrongs right.
Clean it up. I know y'all don't fall asleep before you go home, before you get up the road, please. Don't y'all fall asleep going up the road. Whoever's the most wide awake, that's who needs to drive.
that's all right, Macy. We're all right.
Yes. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to just close
They're not
with one.
recording it, Joanne.
Well, hold on just a second, Macy.
Don't talk to
Now,
me what.
for one point, somebody asked, should we make calls to DEQ? Should we make calls, absolutely. DEQ has a
Yes.
lot of questions
Oh my
because they've been
goodness, yes.
relying on
Number one.
Alcoa
Number
for a lot of research. They've been reporting what Alcoa's been doing.
Right.
And there's a lot of accountability there that needs to happen. So, yes, call DEQ, come to the rally. There are absolutely action steps. You can also find our more resources about what folks have been saying on our website. And so you can learn more about these stories and research that's been happening. So we have enough knowledge. We do not need to rely on Alcoa's story. We know enough. They just need to be able to clean it up, whether that comes from Alcoa, state, or government, federal. we need to make that happen. So thank you all so much for tuning in and joining us here. And we look forward to seeing you on the next steps of our campaign. Look more for our stories on social media.
Yeah, and
So
Alcoa
much.
is not gonna tell you what you wanna hear.
No.
You need to talk to us to find out what you, to
What
get,
really
get
happened.
your answers. And just like the little flyer that was sent out, that is the most potent thing I have ever seen that come from this group of what is it?
He's talking about the mail out, I call it the little
Oh, the mailer.
postcard. Yeah,
The flyer.
that he showed you today.
The 5x7 flyer.
Yeah.
That is the most potent
It was
thing I
so
have ever
detailed.
seen.
And thank y'all so much. It was so
Thank you.
detailed.
Thank y'all.
Thank you,
Really
man. Thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all. Thank you for everything you do. You know, words sometimes ain't good enough. Cause I'm telling you, oh my goodness, the impact that you made, ain't no words in my heart to describe it. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to stand and tell my side of the story and let somebody know that these things are real. It ain't nothing that we made up. It is real. And we want the community to be aware of what's going on. That's our only purpose. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Leave us, help us,
Listen,
and come out and join us.
I
Thank
think
you.
we've got some. I mean, y'all did a great job.
There's
And-
no way.